was thinking about that. It reminds me of that question that kids love to ask, why is the sky blue? We take the blue sky for granted. For many years, it's just the way it is. It's just the way the world is, the sky is blue. And then one day, and I actually asked this question to my dad, and I was lucky because he happens to be a scientist and could answer it. And I suppose, I don't remember exactly what he said then, but I trust that he described the way the long wavelengths pass through the atmosphere. And so the red goes right through, but the shorter wavelengths, the blues, get scattered everywhere. And so your eye picks up nothing but the blue everywhere, scattered all around. We've just looked more deeply at something that we took for granted for so many years. We see it differently now. The real point, the Buddhist point, is that we see it not as this thing, but as this event that depends for its existence on a confluence, a coming together of all kinds of other things that are really events when you look more closely. Like the angle of the sun. For when the earth turns and the sun, from our way of looking at things, gets lower, that sky won't be blue anymore. And so that blue sky depends on the sun's angle. It depends on the atmosphere. It is a certain density in our world, and a host of other things that people like my dad could probably explain better. Asking, who am I, shows us that we are really the same way. We are dependent on, hence dependent origination. See, it's going to start to make more sense to you now, why the Buddhist philosophers use this term dependent origination. I originate, dependent on all of these other causes. Like the blue sky. Who am I? Let's look at that question in a similar way. I think the first place we look, especially in this culture, is our bodies. It's the most tangible. It's the material. It's the most obvious place to start. Is that who I am? Is that my identity? Oh, well, in Los Angeles, yeah. Just turn on the TV. You can have a bikini body in 8 days. And we do identify ourselves very much by our physical beings. We're very body conscious in this culture. But I think that the more thoughtful among us realize that our identity is not our bodies. Anyway, our bodies will change whether we want them to or not. As we age, they'll change in ways we don't really prefer, but they will anyway, right? And we keep looking. We're looking at the tangible. What's the first thing you do when you introduce yourself to somebody? Hi, I'm Donna. Nice to meet you. You state your name, right? And so we identify very much with our names as our form of identity, that thing that represents us. But it doesn't take much to realize that even that might change. If you're a woman, you might get married and change your name. Even if you're not a woman, if you have immigrant grandparents like I do, chances are they changed their name when they entered and passed through Ellis Island. And the guards couldn't spell all those European names, and so they just picked a new one. And so we change our names. The monks we were looking at take a Dharma name. The ascetics throw away their name along with every other concept of the self when they take on the life of a renunciate. So we keep looking, well, who am I then? Who am I? That's what we're doing. We're looking at that question, who am I? And we get into the more subtle. Okay, well, my emotions. We take pride even in our vices. Oh, I'm an angry man. I'm just impatient. That's the way I am. And the Zen master would say, show me that anger. Right? Zen masters are cheeky that way. And you realize, oh, even those emotions that I take pride in, that's me, that's how I am. They change. You're mad, you're angry at something, and someone says the magic words, and next thing you know, you're laughing about it, right? Who among us hasn't experienced that? Where did the anger go? And so we keep looking, we keep looking, we keep looking. Okay, my memory then. That's the thing that allowed you to answer the question I asked you a few minutes ago. What was the most important thing to you when you were a kid? It's that memory that connects you up with your past. It's that thread of continuity, that thing that makes you you. Your memories define who you are and what you think about yourself. The things that were important to you, the family that is still important to you. But you know what? I can pull the rug out from under your feet there too, because memory is a fickle thing. Get two people together and look at the different versions of the story. That's why I wouldn't want to be a lawyer in court for 2 weeks trying to get to the bottom of it. But you know, it's because memory is subject to the way we interpreted an event. And there is no way you can take in everything there is to take in. The senses simply can't manage all of the information. It's why when you see a movie the second time, this happened to me once. I was watching Waking Life, and I used to show this in my intro class. And one day after seeing the movie 10 times, I said, did they show that balcony before? Does that ever happen to you? You watch a movie the second time, the third time, the fourth time, you see something new every single time. Why is that? Because the first time, the first 5 times, who knows how many times this can go on. You simply cannot take everything in. It's not only that, it's that we're distracted. And it's not only that, it's that our capacity at any given moment is limited. It's subject to our maturity level, to our ability to understand a certain thing, the information being presented to us. We take in what we can based on all of those things. And when we look back, we remember a very limited perspective. And there's time also, which has diminished the emotions that were connected up with that event. Those emotions distort as well. So what is this that we remember? It's as if we're creating the very past that we remember. And so memory is very selective, we might say. Stay with me. The original question is, who am I? And we found out that everything we look at doesn't really work. It's all changeable. And we keep looking, we keep looking. And so we get to consciousness itself, that bedrock of a thing, that thing that lets us perceive in the first place, that thing that gives us awareness at all to be able to experience the world. And it too is changeable. It too is dependent on, and we've got a whole theme going here. You see why they call it dependent origination. Because consciousness too is wholly and entirely dependent on an infinite number of other things inside of you and outside of you. You're fading in and out right here. Some of you are half asleep. I can see it. But you know, that's the way we are. We all do it. Our attention waxes and wanes depending on our interests. You know, I start traveling through the Himalayas anytime somebody starts talking about auto parts or sports or something. There she goes. You count me out. But you start talking about, the stuff I'm into, Thich Nhat Hanh, all the things I think are just great. And, oh, what did you say? But you know, we all do that. It's dependent on the food you eat. You feel sleepy if you don't eat a balanced breakfast. Mom was right, you know. Or, the yogis would take it further. If you don't know how to manage your energy, and you haven't evolved your consciousness so that you can sustain it more reliably and not be so subject to all of those distractions inside and out, so that you can get past all of those things. You still see that it's variable. Even still, it's variable. It's dependent on your breath. A few minutes ago, we took a deep breath. Did you notice a difference? It really does pull you in. What if you breathed deeply all the time? There's a connection there. When you're nervous or angry, you're breathing fast. You see it like that. You're very breathy when you have stage fright. But when you're relaxed, you take fewer breaths per moment. And you can manipulate that by taking charge of your breath. You affect your state of being. You affect your very consciousness by breathing deeply, by working with the breath in myriad ways. You become more conscious, more alert, better able to sustain your presence. Your consciousness is more dependable. Are you with me? So, what's the conclusion to be drawn here with regard to that question? Let's stay on point. Who am I was the question. What is the point to be drawn here? Am I just this changeable thing that's not really a thing? And everything I think defines me turns out to be just one more changeable thing? More like a system than a thing? More like a verb than a noun, we can put it that way? This thing in action? This confluence of events completely dependent on other events for its existence? Like my consciousness itself? Well, the Buddhist answer would say yes, because the fact of change is the Buddhist answer. But it doesn't want you to take its word for it. It wants you to see for yourself. Observe for yourself. Because remember, the power is in the asking, not in the answering. When you observe for yourself, you employ the Buddhist tool of mindfulness. We saw that yoga gave us many tools for elevating our consciousness, depending less on the material for sustenance. Here, the tool we're pointing to is that seventh step of the Eightfold Path. We'll look at that next week. It's part of the Four Noble Truths. Before this, they ate that. Never mind for now. Mindfulness is that key. It's the tool that Buddhism gives us to do the looking, to do the exploring, the observing, to see for yourself, to look at the question for yourself, who am I? Once you look, you've started your meditation. You're employing mindfulness. And you see that even my consciousness is this buzzing blend of elements, dependent on the water I drink, the air that I breathe, even the sunshine. My interest, what I've eaten, what I haven't eaten. Maybe how much you've slept. Maybe you're very sleepy and it's hard to stay present at all.